Hey, this is Luna and I wanted to do a video of why I love custom quilting. I'm gonna come with me and share the love, all right? Come with me. Why I love custom quilting? Number one, it's custom quilting is the best skill builder. If you're not very proficient in your skill, custom quilting will make you grow in your skill. As a matter of fact, I was not a very good stitch in the ditch ruler quilter person, and taking custom quilts forced me to do stuff I'm not good at, and it pushed me to do it because I have someone relying on me doing the work. I have someone holding me accountable, like, hey, it's my quilt, you need to have it done for me. So it makes you do things that you're not comfortable in doing, and that's one of the reasons why I love custom quilts, because it pushes boundaries. Because I like being in my box. I like being, and I don't like leaving that space. It's very uncomfortable to do something you're not good at, and so custom quilting for clients pushes you to do what you're uncomfortable doing. Why I love custom quilting number 2. Do you see that brain fart? Man, it's boom. 1, 2, it's whatever you do to that quilt, you know that you did it. If you ruin it, that's the worst part. But if you do some beautiful work, if you put some designs that are yours on the quilt, if you bring the quilt alive by what you put on it. So I stitched in the ditch in these areas already. So yeah, I have the bottom marked and this section. I'm going to stitch in the ditch all this and then stitch all this design that I'm putting on here. What I love about it is after I'm done fighting with myself and freaking out and what the hell are you doing? For example, I was working on this beautiful white and colored quilt. Stitched everything pretty much in the ditch, all of it. And then I also did a 1/2 inch border all the way around the whole design. I was so unsure that it was not coming out right and it didn't look right, and I would unroll it, look at it, and look at the design that I was putting on the quilt, roll it back, and then quilt some more and unroll it, and I would see the quilt itself coming to life. You did the work, you put the designs on there, you highlighted specific areas of the quilt to make them pop, and it was you who did it. And sometimes when you're getting out of your box, you can't believe that you did that. You can't believe that you did that. And it's hard to stretch yourself, and custom quilting makes you stretch. The reason I love custom quilting number 3, it becomes an art piece. Whatever you did to a quilt, I have some quilts that I've custom quilted that were mine and for some clients. It becomes not just a regular quilt anymore. It becomes almost like an art installation. It becomes an art piece. And more, you can panto a quilt and maybe the piecing was beautiful, maybe the piecing design was lovely, and it looks great, but when you custom quilt it, It's art. And honestly, that is why I got into longarm quilting. I didn't get into longarm quilting so that I could do pandos. I got into longarm quilting because I saw a quilt that was custom quilted, and it inspired me to, like, I want to do that. I want to be that person that did that. I want to do art. It's a textile art. It's a very different type of art, but custom quilting, it's art. I believe custom quilting brings a higher value to the quilt. As a matter of fact, one of the quilts that I recently finished for my client, I told her, I said, I want you to know that this quilt is worth now probably like $1,500 because of the quilting that's on it, because of the amount of time that was invested on the quilt. So whoever gets this quilt, I hope they appreciate that it's a one-of-a-kind quilt, because no one else will quilt what you quilted on it. No one else will do the work that you did on it. As a matter of fact, you could buy a pattern and you could have hundreds of people make the same quilt, and the piecing could be the same, the colors could vary, or you could get kits and everyone has the same quilt. And when someone custom quilts it, no one else will have that quilt in that style ever. The beauty of custom quilting, it's one of a kind. One of a kind. And every long armor has a different hand. They have a different way of quilting. They have a different style of quilting. So even if another long armor quilts the same quilt and tries to mimic or copy, it will never look the same, because it's custom, it's manual, and it's individual to the long armor or the designer of the quilt. There is, for me personally, something very spiritual about custom quilting. It's very intimate. You're very close to the textile. You're kind of looking at a piece of fabric, facing it, thinking about what you're gonna put on it, moving your hands, you're leaning on the quilt. You almost become, I don't want to say it weirdly, but you may become part of the quilt, or you become part of the work process. I heard a Facebook message recently, and she shared that, and I love this quote because I find this so true. She says that she loved quilting because when she was piecing, at the time when she started quilting, she had lost her husband. And she says, as I was sewing quilt tops or sewing, she was piecing her heart together. And I think that just says it all. When I started sewing on my sewing machine and doing embroidery work, I was going through one of the hardest seasons of my life. And going and sewing, somehow, I don't know how, my mind stopped thinking about whatever was going on, and it made me focus on the rhythm of the sewing machine, on the task of touching that textile and putting it together to make a quilt top. Long arm or custom quilting does the same for me. It gives me the ability to sit down on a textile piece of fabric and just listen to the machine as I'm moving it, and whatever problems I had, whatever hurt I was harboring, whatever ill will maybe I was carrying that day, or struggle I was dealing with when I was quilting, custom quilting, it kind of like wasn't there anymore. Maybe like I poured it onto the quilt, or maybe I poured it on to whatever I was focusing on. It just kind of healed my heart and healed my mind. Like the lady said, she goes, I feel like when I got on the sewing machine, I wasn't just piecing a quilt top together, I was piecing my heart back together. And it was like so I get her. I get it. And I think sometimes in our lives we have to find something like that. And for me, custom quilting does that for me.